are listening to the most comprehensive paranormal archive on the internet.
Welcome to Salsido Paranormal. I'm your host, James Salsido, and tonight I'm sharing extra experiences, true paranormal stories from the web. As always, you can find all episodes of the show, along with links to social media, ways to listen, and ways to support the show at the website, and that is salsidoparanormal.com. That's SALSIDO paranormal.com. And support is never expected and always appreciated, as there are expenses in making these shows. And there are many ways to support the show, and that would be to I lost my spot. To listen, not to listen. If I could talk, I think here. That would be to share the show with others and rate and review it on your favorite podcast platforms. And also to let me see here. I totally lost my introduction. Anyway, to also to check out. Well, first of all, to sign up. Send in your paranormal experiences to the show, and you can do that either through email at salsidoparanormal@gmail.com or through the website, which has a page with a form on it. And you can also sign up for the Patreon feed and get all the extra shows there. And you can also, and that's for as little as $1 a month. You can also check out the merchandise store and check out all the shirts and some other items there. You can get those on there with designs made by friends of the show. And so and then there's also a PayPal link for one-time donations. Also, please follow friends of the show. Speaking of that, let me click on something here, and we will get this going. But, oops, did I do something? I'm not sure I did. Okay. And please support friends of the show. That would be, of course, Jen, the Arcane Observer, who we will talk with in a little bit here. She is she is a co-host of this show and has her own show on her own channel. My brain is all over the place tonight. Apologize, everyone. And is the co-host of this show as well, like I said. Also, Ricky of the Anything is Possible podcast, who does a paranormal theme show on Sundays that I usually co-host. And Michael Strange, host of Trouble Minds Radio, which I frequently co-host as well. And the Trouble Minds Radio Network, KUAP Digital Broadcasting, where you can hear all kinds of amazing shows, as well as my own, online 24/7 for free. So I think that finally gets me through all that stuff. And looks like, so this will be good. Jen, welcome to the show.
Hey, yeah, I'm happy to be here. Looking forward to talking tonight about just the different experiences and everything. I always enjoy coming and doing the show with you, and I'm looking forward to it. Yeah, very excited to be here. Thank you.
Yeah, so I guess since you are here, we can do more of my experiences. We can go
that'd
from
be
there.
awesome. I'm looking forward to it. Yeah, I had my allergies acting up so bad, but then I took some Zyrtec and I took a nap, and so I won't be talking probably like a whole lot because my throat's a little scratchy, but I didn't want to miss out at all, So anyway,
no problem.
I'm looking forward to hearing your experiences very much so.
Yeah. Okay, yeah. Well, then you're welcome to meet up, and I will go over some stuff here. And yeah, she knows what she's doing. She's already muted up because she's used to this. So, but yeah, so I figure I'll start with the house that used to belong to my dad and my former stepmom, because I realized just recently I forgot about going over that. And this house, I don't even know how old it was. It was, I think, at least 100 years old, around there. Maybe older, I'm not sure. But it was a good-sized house. It had basically a kitchen, and just a huge dining room, living room area. It even had like a foyer or something like that. And then it had the room that was that the family used for the guest room or for my room when I was there, um, off to the side. But all the other bedrooms were on the top floor of the house, the second floor of the house. But so I had a few experiences there, and there's other people there that had a couple experiences too. But I'll kind of mostly focus on my own stuff. But because when when I used to go there, because I used to always go back and forth between my parents' houses, visit them a lot, and so I would go back and forth. I'd go stay in my place for a while, go to visit them for a while, come back because I'm legally blind. They had to take me. They had to come and get me and then bring me back home. So, but so my bedroom was downstairs and everyone else's bedrooms were upstairs. But so there was this one time uh, I was getting ready to go. My dad and everyone went somewhere for a minute, like to the store or something like that. And so I was alone in the house, and I was packing up my old laptop at the time, and I started hearing from the stairwell. I actually talked about this recently in a previous show on liminal spaces. I started hearing voices of two girls uh, talking and but they were whispering and laughing, and it wasn't evil. It was just like they were having fun, and but I couldn't understand what they were saying, and it was coming from like the midpoint of the stairs, and of course the stairs, they were open up to that middle point. They had a railing, but then so yeah, you could see up the stairs partially. And of course, I knew there was no one there, and there was no footsteps. I didn't see anything. And by this point, I was already in my, I think, early 20s. I was like at least 20, 22, 23, 24 years old, something like that, maybe. Right around there. I was not a kid anymore. I'd already had several experiences. Excuse me. All the experiences at my cousin's house. And so I wasn't really freaked out. I was just surprised. And of course, eventually, not too long after they started, they stopped. And as soon as they stopped, my family got back. And so it was like they were aware of what was going on outside the house. And when people were back there again. And so I heard that, and then nothing for a while. And then another time, like a week or two, maybe, not same year. I'm not really sure when exactly because I'm terrible with remembering times and all that. But another time I was there, I was actually arriving there, so it was a different time. And similar situation where everyone was outside in the yard, either doing yard work, that kind of stuff. And I was inside the house, sort of unpacking some of my things. And I was in the foyer, and which is right below my younger sister's bedroom. But I knew she wasn't inside at the time. And I heard those same voices, whispering and laughing, but the sound was coming from upstairs above me, and there was a vent leading up to that room right above my head where I was standing. And the voices went on for a little while, just whispering and laughing, and then they stopped, and then someone came in. And so I thought that was really fascinating. I thought that was how it was always going to go with them. I figured it must be something, of course, had to be something to do with me. And for whatever reason, they either wanted my attention or I was able to hear them and no one else could. I don't know. But the third time I heard them and the last time I heard them was a little bit different because everyone was home. But again, because of the way the house was situated, when everyone went to bed, I was alone on the ground floor. And I had gone to the room and to lay down and try to go to sleep. I've always been a night owl, so it always took forever. And I didn't have anything. After this, actually, I started like bringing a radio in there, like a CD player, boombox kind of thing. And to just have on, just to listen and help me go to sleep. But before that, and I guess possibly part of the reason for that, I never thought about that until now. But this one night I was there and I was just laying in bed trying to fall asleep, and I started hearing that whispering and laughing. But the most amazing part about that was it was not coming from the room above me. It wasn't coming from my sister's room, and there were no vents leading between connecting that room to my room at the time. And then not only that, I could hear the voices were coming from the space just beneath the ceiling of the room, which was amazing. Even back then, I was just really surprised that was how that was possible. So those are kind of the experiences I had there that were identical, but there's a couple others I had there that were not the same. I've also mentioned before, there was this one time where, this was when I think I was a little bit older, like mid-20s or so, around there. And my family went on a vacation somewhere, and I didn't really want to go. But I agreed to watch the house for them for like part of a week, like 4 or 5 days. And I noticed, after they left, I noticed that in the evenings, it started to feel like the house just got crowded. Like people were just coming in. But it wasn't like they were coming in through any doorways. They were just, boom, they were there. One here, one there, and all of a sudden the place just felt crowded. And the only way to be comfortable in that kind of environment and with that big of a crowd there was to have some kind of audio playing at all times. Music, radio, TV, computer games, back before we didn't have a console then. So just the whole night, like every night that I was there, I had to have something playing. And it was really odd. And I realized after the fact that it was the same feeling I got whenever everyone was in the house, but they were all upstairs. And I would get up in the middle of the night to go use the bathroom, and I'd leave the room, the bedroom, and it would feel like I'd interrupted everybody that was down there, even though there was no one physically down there on the ground floor. And I would just quickly go and get in the bathroom and do what I had to do, and then quickly go back to the bedroom and stay in there. And it was an odd feeling. But there was one other event that happened that involved basically the whole family. It was Christmas one year, the Christmas season one year, and everyone except for me, I didn't really have to help with all the stuff because it was all putting up decorations and all that. And so I was just sitting on the couch reading a book at the time, and my former stepmom had been in the foyer getting decorations ready to be put up or something like that. And she had a boombox kind of CD player with a Christmas or holiday themed CD playing, and she left the room to do something. And at some point the music stopped, and I just figured the CD was over. Well, she got back in there a while later, and she asked out loud, everybody, who turned off the music? And of course, no one would turn off her music, because she was really big into that kind of music that time of year. And so no one would just go and do that to her. And so we all said, no, it wasn't us. And I knew for a fact that neither my dad or my sister had gone in that room after she left it, because I was right there in the living room, right by that entrance to that room. And so it was amazing because, like I said, I knew no one had done it. And then when she tried to play the CD again, to press play on that CD player, it would not play for the rest of that day. At least not that CD. I don't even remember if she got a new CD or not, but it would not play that CD anymore at the time. And I wonder if there was someone there that was just sick of that CD at that point. And because it was so odd. I mean, the CD player always worked fine before and after that, and but not that day. So those are the things that happened when I was there. And but I know that my former stepmom saw a figure in the basement at one point, like a man who was like there and then gone. The basement had a creepy energy to it anyway. I don't know why. Um, some basements, they're fine. Others, not so much. My cousin's house, my aunt and uncle's house, when other than that one night with the sightings that my cousin and I had of that cat and that lady, the rest of the time that we were there, we used to love that basement. So like, but the basement at that house, my dad and former stepmom's house, was always kind of weird to me. But my sister had a time where she had this tape player, and it was like a kid's, because she was a kid at the time, kids karaoke or like that kind of kids tape player with a microphone on it, and she couldn't get it to work, and she was like trying to tell it to work, and she heard a voice coming from it or from around it saying basically saying no, and it would not work that day. So just other little stuff like that. But so yeah, that's all the stuff that I can think of right now off the top of my head for that house. And I don't know that it was necessarily evil. There was something going on there. So anyway, Jen, you're welcome to share whatever your thoughts are on that, as much or as little as you want.
Thank you so much. So it makes me think about when you were talking about hearing the voices on the stairs, and then just, the kind of the overlay effect of this older home, and then just all the history most likely accumulated in that home. And it reminds me, it's related, so, but I had this dream one time. And in the dream, I was living, at the time, I actually was living near the downtown center of this small city, not far from where I live now. And I was always downtown, for work, and I think I worked in a bakery at the time, and just frequented all of the businesses very often. There was like a deli, and there were restaurants and things like that, and there were stores. And I lived in this area for quite a while. And in this dream, I was, I saw that same street, and this was a historical district of the part of this town, of this city. So it's like a historical neighborhood slash business district. And so the buildings were all really old, like the 1800s, about that time period, the early 1900s. Right. And in the dream, it looked the same for the most part. And I was walking down the sidewalk, and I went into one of the businesses, and it was like a cafe almost. And there were two women that were dressed in I'd say the 1920s or something. There were all the people it looked like a wholly different time period. Now this was a dream.
Right.
But from there, from visiting with them, I knew them almost, sort of, walked out and went over to their house to have they put on a record player, and their house was an apartment walk up from the sidewalk as well, above one of the businesses, and went up there, and we were trying on clothes and just visiting, and there was coffee and things like that, and there was a record player, and they were just laughing and everything, and I was sitting there visiting with them, and I knew I didn't really know them. It was really strange, but they were acting like I was kind of just there, but not there. It was this weird kind of there, not there feeling. They were mostly talking to each other, but they weren't leaving me out. It was this weird dynamic of me being present there, though they kind of noticed me, but not really. And I remember looking out the window down at the street, and there was a little gated front in front of the building, a low fence, a wrought iron fence, probably 3 feet tall. And it only was about 5 feet from the stoop of this entrance to this apartment from the street. And there was this figure of this, there was this, and he had this really broad rimmed hat. I'm talking a very wide brimmed hat. and he was just standing there, like perfectly still, not moving or anything. But I was looking at him, and he was looking up at the window where I was, and he didn't move or anything. But his eyes were just like looking at me up in the window. And at one point, I came downstairs to leave and walked past him, and he didn't move, not once. And like, I remember in the dream too, it was as if those women couldn't leave this certain area specifically. And like that figure, like I said, he didn't move or anything, but it's like he was aware of me being there. But it was almost as if like I was in some sort of time period, or like maybe this was from a different time period. These people were passed on, and like he knew that, and that I was there, and like it was weird that I was there, but he was like just watching me be there, type of thing. It was the strangest thing, but it makes me think about like in that house, a historical, history most likely.
Yeah.
If there's an overlay where it's almost like that, like in your world, and not in a dream state at all, like that they are living there, and it's kind of bleeding through, and this sort of vice versa going on. I mean, it's a very typical idea, but some type of a not residual, not even, but they're just possibly still existing there, at that house. And because those same buildings, it was so strange because, like with that dream I'm talking about, the buildings were identical. The architecture looked exactly the same, but they were being used for different purposes now.
Right.
But the people were still interacting. Like the cafe I'm talking about was like a retail store, but it's as if like where the women were and all the other people too, they were just kind of sitting around, eating and visiting. But I wonder if they're still doing all of those things, even though now today it sells clothes. You see what I'm saying? And like if in that, yeah, like if in that house, like all the family came home in the evening or something to that effect, so it did feel full because they're all coming home and they're kind of getting settled into their rooms, like a family home and that sort of thing. So it didn't feel any different. And maybe they were semi-aware, like they could possibly even have seen your family member who had the CD or player or something that affect kind of, they could have even seen that and been able to affect it by touching it. Like there's some amount of bleed through that, do you see what I'm saying? Or something where they're just like, what is this? Or something like that. Or who knows? Because people experience the weirdest things and they can't explain them. But that would explain some of it, in one direction, in one possible way.
Yeah, like a time anomaly, a series of like times touching for just I could definitely.
They're still spirits, but yeah, it's more like they're still spirits because they're no longer in the present. But it's really strange. Something like that could be maybe just because of them doing the same things and just living their life almost. I don't know.
Yeah,
it's really interesting.
Yeah, and I the that feeling, like I said, it wasn't ever negative. It was just so strong, and I had already had experiences, but I wasn't really into looking into these things yet. So like, I wasn't interested in like just hanging out in the room to see if anything else would happen. Like that wasn't in my mind yet. But yeah, no, that makes sense.
Maybe like a grumpy family member lived in the basement at one point.
Could be.
Or like
Definitely.
or a big fight or something happened there, or was even still happening. You know what I mean? Like in some other dimension in the basement, there was someone who, or something like that going on, or it was frequently used in some way that, there was some not negative energy, but some type of, memory left there that was so, obvious that took on that kind of energy, or I don't know, because to cause a negative, like to cause the feeling of something, just kind of not something you want to be around, like sometimes people are like that. Like sometimes people are just not, in the mood to be around people, and so they're not pleasant to be around, and so it's possible that it could be a brooding, just some, who knows, just sitting down there, or I don't know, but that would explain a lot of the way it would feel. Not necessarily that it's directed at you personally, but just that it feels like walking on eggshells, kind of uncomfortable, you know, just kind of want to leave sort of feeling that
Yeah.
sometimes they put off, from things. Or if it was used, in some way, like, I don't know, like an isolation area or who knows. But yeah, so there's just no telling, really.
Well, and especially with, who knows how big any family that lived there at any point
Yeah.
before was. Like, I mean, sometimes people, families had three or four or five or six or, you know, 10
Yeah.
kids. And
Yes.
that's not any, judgment from, on my end, and I know not on
Not at
your end
all.
either, on that happening. It's just, that's the way things, I mean, heck, I come from a family that started out that way,
Yeah.
my
Yeah.
dad's side.
Yep.
So it happens. And so maybe it was really crowded and it was like
They were kind
10
of forced
people.
to live down there. Yeah. And
Yeah,
weren't
and
happy
even
about it. Yeah.
on the ground floor, there were just like 10 people there that were, who knows if all the rooms on the ground floor were always public rooms, they could have been used for bedrooms or whatever.
Yeah,
So,
absolutely. Yeah, there's just no
yeah,
telling. But I mean, a lot of times those big houses would have multiple families living in them,
right.
you know,
Yeah,
generations, and extended family. Yeah.
yeah, yeah. What's funny is I had the chance, if I really wanted to investigate, like to go and stay a night in that house just before my former stepmom was going to hand the keys over to a new owner. But it was like right at Halloween, right before Halloween, and I already had a show planned for the night that she was inviting me to come over and do that. So I decided, no, I better not. I mean, who knows? My luck, either nothing would happen, or it'd be just like an experience
The
I wouldn't
last,
want to have.
yeah, the last
You
kind
know,
of, yeah.
yeah, like something
Right.
major. And so, yeah,
Well, I
so
wonder
I
if
kind
they'd
of,
be aware of it. I wonder if they'd be aware of
right.
it changing hands even somehow or something. If there's some type of bleed through, like maybe there's sometimes in our realm and sometimes we're in theirs. And there was a movie called The Others, and it kind of went over. It had Nicole Kidman, and it was like a haunted house story. But
Right.
essentially, it was that kind of notion that like there was like two different timelines going on in the same space. Of course, it involved it was these children that were seeing these other two children, and they were seeing them as ghosts, but they were technically living their same timeline in that house. Do you see what I'm saying? Like
Yes.
they were
Yeah.
still there. I'm on my stoop outside, and there's a car
That's okay.
driving by. Sorry.
No
That's
problem.
cool. but yeah, so kind of like that, like there's a time where they would see them as if they were real. And there were even some housekeepers who came to work on the property, but they were ghosts
Mm.
that had been
Yeah.
housekeepers there before. It's a really interesting way to kind of look at it. And I've heard of stories too, like in I think it was like New Orleans or London. I can't remember, but they say that half the people, or not half the people, I don't know if that's how bold they were with the statement, but that a good portion of the people you meet aren't actually they're from another they're spirits supposedly.
Right.
So I think that's really interesting too, kind of concept.
Yeah. I've always wondered about that because if you think about all the people that you pass every day, I mean, yeah, you're gonna know some of them, even if it's only barely, just from seeing them around. But then there's all kinds of people besides that are around. And if it's people you don't know or you don't talk to, I mean, they could still be. That's the thing. We don't know because spirits, souls, whatever, they don't always appear like you see on TV where they're translucent or transparent or a shadow, or sometimes they appear to be a regular physical person. And so
Yeah, and they may
it's
not
hard to tell.
realize, or maybe they
Yeah,
kind of know. Some of them might know, hypothetically, or might consider it, but they may even reveal to other, like for example, in that movie I'm talking about, which is just a really good ghost story actually, but it's not scary. It's kind of just interesting.
right.
And the lead housekeeper, the other ones sort of don't understand what has happened. Like one of them is mute from the incident, and she's really quiet, but she kind of knows that this is what has happened, and that they're actually, have passed away. but they're still just doing the exact job that they had done, their whole lives there at that house, which is this giant estate house, But
Right.
and they were telling the woman that, okay, so I guess not to go into this movie, but the woman, the mother in the movie, she is deceased and doesn't know it. And they're trying to
Ah,
like explain to her, the head housekeeper is trying to explain to her that she's passed on. And there's this whole story about it, but it's almost like some of them, maybe they don't know. And so
yeah.
some other ones come through to try to help them. But it's all happening in the same world as the living, because the one who is actually deceased and doesn't know it is still in the world with the living to some
Yep.
extent. It's a really bizarre, interesting idea.
It
I need to
is. And I
rewatch
mean,
it. I haven't seen it in years, but I'll rewatch it.
yeah, it is. And you do hear about that. I mean, and that's something we talk about here and there. And I find experiences about that too, once in a while, where people have encounters with these other people and they don't know that they're ghosts. They don't know that they're spirits. And so, yeah, it wouldn't surprise me if that does happen sometimes. And so, yeah, there was one I just had recently. One of my shows I just put out a little while back now, where someone had um, they had their grandmother passed away, and it was sudden, unfortunately. And they had a dream one day about being in their grandmother's house with their grandmother, and their grandmother was confused and didn't know what had happened. And so this person had to tell them, you passed away suddenly. And this grandmother was just kind of took it and was just accepted it and just said, "Oh, okay," and then that was it. And then they just, you know, the dream went on for a little while longer, the visitation, and then, but this person never had a dream like that again. So it was like it really may have been a visitation.
Yeah, we don't really think about it enough about that idea that they're not intentionally, they're literally just going about their day-to-day business and oblivious to it. And um, I don't, and there may be a whole entire world going on where people who knew them, who are also passed on, are just pretending along the same way as they always did, as they work up to a point eventually where the person revisits um, the moment or something. Like maybe they pick up
Yeah,
on the same time, but the person's stuck sort of in a loop, and like the spirits kind of pick up where the person begins to go like a week before. Maybe they're passing. And so they pick up that moment and continue to act the same way leading up to it. And then at that moment, sort of explain that, you know, sort of show them, like in the case of that movie I'm talking about, like showed her where they were buried,
right.
like in that instance, which is really interesting. But I don't know. And I do think that the living too, um, you know, because she thought the house was haunted, but it was the living. It was the living people that were haunting her house.
Right.
But she thought it was the other way. You see what I'm saying?
Yeah,
And they
yep,
thought that
definitely.
they were doing a seance to contact those spirits. And there was like a bleed through where she walked into the living room and they were in there doing a seance where she actually saw them. But it was the other way around. Like she was passed on and the ghosts that were haunting her house were alive. And it was this sort of strange idea, and it's it is a very interesting concept, like of them, the kind of between the worlds here, the other world, where people might be still living or experiencing some existence, that there's some kind of mixing of them sometimes at certain locations, especially when there's disruption about, not being clear about whether or not, I don't know, you wouldn't know, but I guess it's possible you could just block it out. I guess as far as the
Right.
spirit, yeah.
Yep. I think I only saw part of the others once. I need to go and listen, or yeah, listen to it. But the movie I saw, that it's funny because like it was really popular and everything, but and I always come back to this movie, The Sixth Sense, was a fascinating movie.
It was really. I need to watch that one again too. That was a
Yeah,
really good.
and it sort of played with some of those same concepts in different ways, but yeah, it's I did remember one more little thing that happened in that house. Apparently, my former stepmom and another Christmas thing, actually, gathering for friends and family, and mainly friends. she thought that someone was coming in the house in the evening, like a friend was coming over, because she saw like a shadow by the main door, and she went to look, and there was no one there. So, but yeah, just all kinds of stuff. That's another one of those places too. I think at some point, one of these last ones we do of these experiences will be what I call my multiverse visitations, or like out of body multiverse experiences, because that's one of those places I've been to, uh, but in like with different people and or same people but acting in extremely different ways. So that'll be a good another show there. But yeah, so that's basically it for that house. Uh, I just it's one of those houses like there's part of me that wants to, but another part that doesn't want to go and investigate these houses um, with no one else in there and just check them out now. Now that I've just learned so much in general about things and how things might be and all that since from when I used to be in those houses when I knew next to nothing about all this. But anyway, so yeah, that covers that house. I I did go on a few a couple of paranormal investigation to a couple of paranormal investigation events years ago that were kind of fun and had some interesting things happen in them. And this actually ties into some of my weird dreams I've had of places where I went there in a dream first, and then went there in person, either months or even years later. And it was always that dream visitation was always different in that there was never anyone around the place in the out of body experience, but there was when I was there, obviously in person because I had to get a ride there, and in some cases it was even like nighttime in the dream and then daytime when I went there. But so I had these three dreams over the years about these places. Uh, and I actually had one about two about one. So there's two different sets of these here. I had two dreams about a place years ago. Um, one, and then months later, another. And the first one, I was in this room. It was all cement walls and floor, and it was empty. And I could tell I was in a basement, and I could see like the windows up near the ceiling. And it was morning, like it was almost like I could see the daylight coming up or showing up. And I just wandered around, and then I was back home. The second one I had, I was there at night, and I didn't realize these two were connected until I went to this place in person. But I was in this large room, and there was next to no light. But I went up these two wooden steps into this room, and I could see the walls were brick in this room. And there was I got to this point in the middle of the room where I could see this dark oval shape on the floor. I couldn't tell what it was. It was just dark oval shape. And then eventually everything faded, and I woke up. Well, years later, I found out about this group, and I'm not going to say the name of the group now because I don't know if they're around anymore. But they they were having this public investigation event. What this group would do, and I think other groups do this too, they would have public paranormal investigations in places that were historic sites, and they would sell tickets, but the ticket price, all the money went to the place that you were visiting for restoration and upkeep and all that. And it wasn't anything crazy. It was like $40, which if you think about like a concert, anytime within the last decade or more, like $50 or whatever for an event of any kind is not bad these days. So I wanted to go, and I told my family that. I told my dad I wanted to go and I would need a ride. My dad and my family, just need to get someone to take me there and bring me back home. And this was not too long after my dad had um, found my stepmom, my current stepmom, basically. And turns out she and her daughters, my stepsisters, are also into these things. So they ended up going. We ended up going to this house, and it was an octagon-shaped house in the next town over from where I live. And we get there, and we were invited inside and everything. We go through a line to pay for the tickets and everything. Actually, no, I think it was you just had to bring a slip saying you paid. But anyway, and so we get in there, and they tell us you're all meeting in the basement. Everything's set there for everyone to meet in the basement. So we went in the basement and get down to this room right after out of the stairs, and it's that same concrete floor and walls, that same room from that first dream. But in the waking world, there was all these metal folding chairs in this room because that was where the whole night was going to start. And so by this point, I'd had some other similar experiences, but I was still shocked because, wow, I'd been here before, but out of body in a dream. So they started the event by splitting everyone up into two groups. And one group went up to the second floor of the house. And the other group, the one that I was in, we stayed in the basement. And they let us into the next room. To get to the next room, you went up two wooden steps. I look into the room, brick walls, and I realized this is the place that I went to in another dream. And I figured out, once we got in there, because there were lights on, that oval shape I had seen on the floor was a rug, which makes sense. And so we get in there and we all sit down, and these paranormal investigators have all their tech and everything, and they use to record voices, and they have the computer devices that are affected by energies in the environment or whatever, or spirits. Supposedly, I don't know how that works, but I think there's different kinds. But and a couple of times during that event, and a couple others after, these devices said my first name, so it was kind of funny. But at one point while we were down there, it was an adults-only event, but we heard a little girl on the ground floor that was just talking and laughing, and we couldn't understand what she was saying. But she was on the ground floor, in between the two groups. And it went on for a while, and then it stopped, and around the same time, someone saw a light in the back of the room behind where my family and I were sitting, of course. And it was just there, and it was gone. And so, yeah, that was that experience there. But, and I was shocked. I was just thinking, how does that happen? How do I go to a place two times in my dreams that I've never been to before, and then go there in person in one night later? Turns out I had three dreams at one point after that, or three dreams throughout the years after those first two, and they were about different places, but I went to all three places in the same night. It was another one of those investigation events from that same group. So I had this first dream about being in a hallway. I think it was the first one. Either way, these are all dreams I had about these places. I was in a hallway, and the lights were on and everything. And ahead of me, I could see the hallway ended in a T. It was a T-shaped hallway intersection. And there was these two chairs and a table with a brick wall in the middle of like the plaster, regular solid colored hallway walls. But there was a brick wall just behind the two chairs. And I got to the intersection. I looked to the left, and there was a door leading outside, and it was nighttime. And looked to the right, and I could see there was a room, and I could see tables and chairs. But there was the wall. I could see it was all dark, and I realized it was like a window wall, and I didn't recognize the place. And then everything faded. So that was that first dream. Second dream I found myself in this house. Very small kitchen, just old-fashioned kitchen. And I walked from there into another room, and I realized it was set up like a dining room. And there were these tables. They had benches instead of chairs. on either side of them. There was like 6 of them. And I was trying to figure out why there'd be benches and tables in a house. And then that one ended and faded. Third dream I had, I was in another wooden building. I could see all the exposed wood in the walls and everything. And in one room that I was in, I walked into another room and it was being renovated. And but I could see that with the window that looked outside, it was dark out. And I noticed that it was one of those windows that has the wood lines in it. And I always forget to look up what those are, but that make it look like a grid of smaller windows, that kind of thing. And I looked at that, and I looked around the room, and then that one faded. So after that, at some point, and after that first investigation we went on, we found out about another one that was happening at a lighthouse station in another town that's not too far from where I live. And I guess I could say it. I don't think it matters that much. It's in Port Huron, which is sort of right on the coast of Michigan, actually. And there's a bridge to Canada in that town, actually. But and so we found out about this event, so we decided to go. And we're going to go and eat dinner somewhere that night. And so a family member recommended this one place, that we go to this one place in Port Huron, so we went there. We walked in through the door, and to my left was that brick wall with the table and the 2 chairs. And I looked to the right, and it looked like that hallway where I had started in the first dream. Get into the restaurant, and it has the same window wall and tables and chairs. And again, I stopped for a second because I always takes a second to process all that feeling like, wow, this is wild. And so we had our dinner and went to the event, and we got there and said hello to the people. They kind of knew us at that point, recognized us, and we got into the property, and they said, we're meeting in the duplex. Everyone's go to the Lakekeeper's duplex. So we went to this house and walked in, same little kitchen that I had in the second dream. And of course, we walk around the corner into the room where they directed us, and it was that room with the tables and the benches. And so I was really surprised at this, because this is the second time now this is happening where it's 2 different dreams about 2 places. But this time it's weird because it's 2 different places so far. So we start the event and everything, and had their different devices said my name again, and heard some little bumps and bangs and stuff like that. Nothing major that night. Motion detectors went off. But the last place we went to apparently was an old hospital. Not like a modern hospital, huge kind of stone or cement building, like an older hospital. It looked like a trailer. And we walked in there, and it was all exposed wood. They were working on it. And we walked in that first room, and I stopped because I recognized it, and walked in that second room, same window. And so, yeah, it turns out I had 3 different dreams at 3 different points in time about 3 different places that I then visited on the same night. So how do we explain that one? Jen, have any ideas there?
I don't know. I think it's really okay. So I think anytime, like the dream coming through, I mean, maybe if you have you go out of your normal timeline, because you kind of did, like it's an unexpected event, and you go and you're doing something outside of what you normally would do. But then you dreamed about it way prior to that, of having gone there. I mean, it's definitely back to the whole time not being as you think it is, but it's just, there's something to that, clearly just the timeline blending. But you were having premonitions, is what that is. What it sounds like is premonitions of what was going to happen in the future. But if time is not what we think it is. It could have been somewhere you'd been in the past. So it's all kinds of hard to understand, about how it could be. But you had a memory of it somehow, or it was being shown to you. Um, it's interesting how it was a unique experience that would have stood out to you now anyway. That would be a memory, no doubt. It was definitely outside of your normal. You know how, like, some days, if I were to ask you what happened 4 days ago, you know what I mean? And, like, it may not immediately come to you what happened 4 days ago. But if
Yeah.
something like this had happened, like where you went on a trip, or you went and, or something out of the ordinary happened, or something that usually doesn't happen had happened, or something special had happened, you would remember. And so it kind of, like, it's interesting how, we have our whole lives of God knows how many hours and days, and some things stick in the memory because they're um, different from what usually happens. And I think that those tend to, that's interesting that even though it seems like a mundane thing, it still stands out. So I think that's, I don't know, it's hard to say. It's just definitely something to do with time, though, again.
Yeah. And so I've had others, and I guess we can round out the show with these couple of these here. I've had a couple others over the years too. I had one where I found myself in a very small room, and there was literally just enough space for a desk in front of me and a chair behind it, and then the wall behind that. But there was a window in the wall, and I could see outside, and I could see like a street light shining in. And months after that, through my school system, my local schools, they asked if I wanted to do like a work experience kind of a program where I'd work in an office. I'd find out what it was like to work in an office. And so I said yes, and they put me in an office. It was a government office, actually. And so I went there and started working there, and there was a lot of just putting paper in the shredder and all that kind of stuff, and some like minor filing and all that kind of those kind of things, really easy stuff. My eyes were not didn't have the problem with strain and light sensitivity that I have now. And but there's this one day where one of the bosses there handed me a file and said, "Go take this to this person over there. They're in a just follow this wall of filing cabinets. They had literally made small rooms for themselves out of filing cabinets, and just follow that wall and go to your right." So I did that, and I found myself in this just the space big enough for one desk, one chair, with a wall and a window in the wall behind it. And I realized, again, I'd been there in a dream, but it was nighttime in the dream. And when I was there in person, obviously, it was daytime. And I handed the person the file, and I had to like make myself move to get out of there because I didn't want them to wonder what was going on with me, or if I was make them think I was waiting for something. uh, because that was like one of the first ones. And because I was like 19 then, 18, 19, something like that. And so I left the room, and I was really shocked at that. But yeah, so that was one of the first ones. Another one I had, and this ties to what we'll cover in the next of these revisiting my experiences episodes. I had a dream once about being in a like a now I forgot where it was at. It was like a cafeteria kind of meeting room area, and I was there and there was other people there, but no, I'm thinking about the when I was there awake. That's what it was. It was a cafeteria. It's like lounge, not even a cafeteria, just like a lounge. And there were tables and chairs and everything, but no, not really anything food. But and they had TVs and stuff. And along the one wall in this room, there were these. It was like a nice colored, I don't know, wall pattern, like a pattern on the wall, and it was these arrow head shapes. moving along the wall. It was like a room in the middle, in between two hallways, and but there were all these arrowhead shapes along this one wall, and just different colors and leading from one end to the other. And I had this dream about being in this room and moving around it. I didn't feel like I was walking. I usually don't feel like I'm walking, just moving. And the lights were on, but they were dim. But there was nobody in there. And I could see that the TV was on, but I couldn't see what was on it. And I didn't hear anything coming from it. So I had this dream years ago. Well, I went to this, I was at this training center for people that have low vision or no vision to learn how to live independently. And at one point they asked if I wanted to, some of us wanted to go and check out like a trade school, college kind of place. And I thought, well, I don't think I'm going to go to something like that, but sure, I'll check it out. So this was this training center I went to was in Kalamazoo. I don't even know where this trade school is at. It was not even like in Kalamazoo. It was a hour's drive, like a couple hours drive at least. And so we went there, and they were giving us a tour of the place. And we get to this room, we walk in. To my left is the same arrowhead design along the wall. And to my right are all the tables and chairs and TVs right where I'd seen them in the dream. And just right as I'd seen it. And then we walked through and did the rest of the tour. But that one also surprised me because that was in a part of the state where I have no family in that area. Like I'm sure of that. My family is all eastern side of the state. And so there's no way I was ever there in person with family for any reason. So really fascinating how, I don't know how that works, but there's just a couple of examples of sort of one-off versions, but still connected. And, but yeah, so your thoughts on that, Jen? I think we'll end the show here.
I just say, I think you've had premonitions of things that will happen. You know, I'm not sure what it is to do with the timeline, if it's somewhere you've already been and it's a memory you're having, even though it appears to be something that happens to you in the future. You know, like the timeline could be reversed even. Because how would you know? I mean, but then again, you know, I've heard, like with time travel, if there's anything to that, but mathematically they think that they could, and I don't know anything about mathematics, you know, equations with things at all. But like I've heard them say that they can go into the future, but they can't go into the past as easily or at all. But there are equations that could allow them to possibly time travel into the future, but not backwards. I don't know how that all would work, but if there's some type of a time loop, then like when we see things in the Victorian era, are they in the future or are they in the past? You know, it'd be hard to tell, but how you would have a memory of a place you've never been to, like how would your mind be aware of it? And or is it, why would it travel into the future of an experience you haven't made a decision to do yet? So it's all just very interesting, but yeah, I don't know how it would work, but it definitely stands out that the experience is, again, something you would remember if you had done it. Because like we were saying before, like, you know, if I asked what happened a couple of days ago, like say 8 days ago, but you can remember something perfectly that happened 20 years ago because it stood out for some particular reason. But how could you remember something 20 years in the future that was a special, you know, experience? There's something funny with time playing in that, and memory being tied to it in some way. And so I don't, you know, there's something to that for sure. And I had a great time tonight visiting, and I'm glad I made it.
Me too. Thank you so much. And I'll talk to you not next Saturday as we record this because I have a family thing going on, but Saturday after that, and of course we'll talk again on Discord elsewhere. So, but yeah, thank you so much. And yeah,
thank you too.
Yep. And so thank you all for listening as well. And again, like I just said here, For those of you that are listening live, next Saturday's show will, I won't be doing a live show that night. I'll put out a Patreon preview show for that week's fifth show and go from there. But thank you all again, and I will talk to you all next time on Salsido Paranormal. Take care.